See if there's any type of...
Call the Owatonna City Council meeting to order for Tuesday, September 6th. May we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Burbank.
Here.
Rainey.
Here.
Svenby.
Here.
Dodson.
Here.
Okerberg.
Here.
Schultz.
Here.
Abraham.
Here.
Mayor Kuntz.
Here.
We have all 7 of the council and the mayor present.
Thank you. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight for this council meeting, and with that, we'll move on to the agenda. There is no changes to it, so we'll look for approval as presented.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Nate Dotson to approve, second by Brent Svenby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved. Moving down to 1.3, public hearing, proposed assessment 2015 Lamont Road project and 2015 Mineral Springs Road Parkway project. And we'll go to Kyle with this.
Les, I'll have to recuse myself from this.
Okay,
I'm a
thank you.
property owner on this.
Thank you.
Good evening. This is the public hearing for the assessments on the two projects. Both were completed last year. We're just getting around to doing the assessments. So Mineral Springs was reconstructed from Cherry Street to Mineral Springs Road, and Lamont was constructed from Selby to Kim. And I believe there were 10 property owners on Lamont and 12 property owners on Mineral Springs affected by this. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. And with this at 7:02, we'll open up the public hearing for anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on these two items. If you do, please come to the microphone and I'll have you sign in so that we have record of who it is.
Les, I do have 2 letters to read into the record. If you'd like, I could do it now. To City of Owatonna from Paul Arnfeld Trust and Lowell G. Schultz. We request that the footage calculation be reviewed for our parcel on Mineral Springs Parkway. We believe the corner of Ridge Road has already been paid and should be reduced from the parking side. And then from Springs Development Company, we request that the Mineral Springs Parkway assessment be deferred until the property is developed. Those are the 2 letters I have received.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address this? Seeing none, we'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion by Kevin Rainey to close the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave Burbank. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now is the council's turn to ask questions if you have them. And are there any questions from the council? Seeing none, we'll move on to 1.31, which is a resolution 7116 to adopt assessment on 2015 Lamont Road. What is the council's wishes?
Great.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Jeff Okerberg to approve. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Dave Burbank. Any further discussion there? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved. Moving on down to 1.3.2, Resolution 72-16 to adopt assessments on 2015 Mineral Springs Parkway project. What is the council's wishes?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Jeff Okerberg to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Nate Dotson. Any further discussion there? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? These have been approved. We will now move on to item 1.4, CGMC update from Marty Seifert, the lobbyist. And if you would like to, I'll give you the microphone.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, my name is Marty Seifert. I work with Flaherty and Hood, which for years has been on contract with the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. Before I say anything else, I want to thank Owatonna for your leadership You tend to be a little bit more conveniently located to St. Paul than, say, Crookston or Roseau, which have 5, 6, 7-hour drives. And we lean heavily on Tom and Les to testify on bills and to lobby and to be engaged with the legislature. Just from a sense of distance, you've got that economy of scale with your size, that you're a regional center, a county seat, and really, I think, do an admirable job of giving examples of why LGA is important, why BDPI is important, why transportation is important, Highway 14 is important, and everything kind of comes together here. And so when we need an example of why a certain thing is important for Greater Minnesota, Owatonna pops up quite frequently because you've been a leader in a lot of these areas. The handout that I have just goes a little bit over some of the things that happened in session, or didn't happen, I should say. And you can read that at your leisure, but the highlights of what didn't happen are in the blue box down in the bottom corner. Session adjourned. Just like in 2015, there was no tax bill. As all of you know, the tax bill is what funds local government aid. The city of Owatonna, I have a handout just for Owatonna that looks like this inside. The top shows you the appropriations overall for local government aid, and you can see the CGMC proposal and the Senate proposal mirror each other. The red line is what the actual compromise tax bill was. The blue line is current law, and the orange line is what the House bill was for the overall allocation for local government aid. So what ended up happening is, with no tax bill this year, your local government aid remains frozen. I just put in this little box down here how Owatonna would have came out specifically had the tax bill passed, and if for some reason a tax bill were to be resurrected in a special session, and I know it looks like there is not going to be a special session, although the governor said at the state fair a few days ago, maybe we should have one for the tax bill and the bonding bill now. So now they're, fanning hopes that it might happen. But talking with your administration and so forth, I would not plan on a local government aid increase. It's better safe than sorry. And I know this is a pretty prudent group here, so I don't think you're going to have pixie dust money that you're going to come up with your budget. If there is a special session and they resurrect the tax bill the way it was in May, as it was vetoed, you would have $213,000 extra money coming, and that is ongoing money, not one-time money. So you would have a built-in base increase of $213,620 if the tax bill is resurrected. And you can do with that what you will. You can put it all into a levy reduction, you can put it all into police, fire, seal coating, whatever. You have ultimate discretion with the way we have the bill worded. So it would be good to have a special session. If you haven't done a resolution asking for a special session, I'd recommend that, because a couple hundred extra thousand would be, I'm sure, appreciated. On the back side, there's just a little graph in regard to how the history of local government aid is with Owatonna. And then at the bottom, there was another provision in the tax bill that we advocated for. This isn't really a city issue per se, but it is something relevant to rural Minnesota when it comes to business competitiveness. There was a provision tucked into the bill that is in our standing platform for the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities that advocates for a reduction in the CI, or commercial industrial property tax, for small businesses. And what was contained in the tax bill is, if you have a small business on the main street of Owatonna or Medford or Waseca or wherever, your first $100,000 of value would be shielded entirely from the CI tax. And so this just gives you a little bit of an example of the property tax savings would be over $700 for what would be considered a low value parcel of commercial industrial. So if you own a coffee shop on the main street of Owatonna and it's worth on the tax rolls $154,000, and you make $1 per cup of coffee, you'd have to sell $700 less cups to pay for the property tax bill. As all of you know, the CI levy does not go to your coffers, that goes to the state of Minnesota. And so they took the surplus money, and that was part of the infusion that they had in the tax bill for property tax relief for small business people. So it just gives you an example for Owatonna specifically. The tax bill did pass both the House and the Senate. It passed the Senate unanimously. It passed the House with all but a tiny handful of votes. It ended up getting vetoed by the governor, mainly over a drafting error where the word and and or were interchanged in the gambling section of the bill, and it would have cost the state of Minnesota about $100 million if you read it literally, and the Revenue Department wanted to read it literally. The majority leader and the speaker thought they could just write a letter saying we really meant it to say and instead of or, but the Revenue Department said that you can't make law with just two people, and so the governor pocket vetoed the bill, which means in the second year of the biennium, if you don't sign the bill within the first 14 days after adjournment, it automatically becomes vetoed. So he didn't stamp it veto, he just didn't sign it at the end of session. Bonding bill, which is something we also advocated for. There was money for clean water, infrastructure, and sewer money, mainly for rural Minnesota. We advocated very heavily for that. We had testimony from the mayor of Albert Lea that talked about how expensive all of these things are. As some of you recall, last year we advocated for changing the regulations on the water and sewer regulations that the Pollution Control Agency came up with that made it the strictest in the United States. The governor vetoed the environment bill. We put the environmental regulation changes into the environment bill in both bodies on a bipartisan basis. The governor vetoed the bill, and those provisions were not included in the special session environment bill in June of last year. So one thing we had, and I'm trying to remember if, Tom, were you part of that mayor's delegation that met with the governor last year?
Yep.
It was kind of an awkward meeting, I would say.
It was, yes.
But I think it did plant the seed. I think there were 6 mayors that met with him. It did plant the seed with him that if you're going to have all these mandates on local government, pay for them. And so if anything came out of that meeting, as awkward as it was, because he basically said, I don't care how much this stuff costs, you got to do it. We planted the seed at that meeting and we nurtured it, that if you're going to have all of these environmental mandates, they have to be paid for, because otherwise the folks at this table have to levy it, or you have to increase people's sewer and water fees or surcharges or whatever. This stuff isn't free. So we really believe that meeting set the table for that $160 million that the governor was putting in the bonding bill. $133 million is what was included in the final bill for clean water infrastructure, $12 million for BDPI, Business Development Public Infrastructure Program. So if a business is going to either be lured to your city or stay in your city and they need some public infrastructure like a sewer line, a water line, a service road, BDPI helps pay for that. There was also $200 million for corridors of commerce, which included Highway 14. So for this part of the state, that bonding bill was extremely important. And that ended up not getting to the governor's desk, passed the House by a wide margin. The lack of a better term, messenger boy that takes the bill, ran it across the street to the Senate building. They added a light rail amendment. So the House has to pass an identical version of the bill to go to the governor. So that as the messenger boy was running the bill back to the House adjourned at about 2 minutes to midnight. So the bonding bill never passed in identical forms. It passed the House in one form, the Senate in another form, and at midnight it all blew up into a pumpkin and we had no bonding bill. Transportation bill never made it to the floor of the House or the Senate. They passed separate bills in 2015, one out of the House, one out of the Senate. Senate had a gas tax. The House paid for it out of the surplus and bonding. They met several times, looked at each other, argued a little bit. There were 5 people from the House, 5 people from the Senate in a room kind of like this, and they really never came to an agreement, and so the bill never came back for consideration for either body to look at. If you open this up, you can kind of see some of the other things that we worked on, including workforce housing, which was in the Senate bonding or a Senate tax bill. They ran out of money. I mean, you get a certain target to work with, just like a group like this when you work on your budget. There wasn't enough money for everybody, and you have to compromise. Just like the local government aid money, we got about a little less than half of what we asked for. Not everybody gets everything they want. That's the way the legislature works. So while we're disappointed they don't give us everything that we ask for, We did get a lot of the things we wanted, including the clean water money and the local government aid money and the small business relief, but unfortunately it all fell apart at the end, either through pocket veto or arguments over the light rail situation. There is a handy little chart in here that just talks about what our priorities were, and those are determined by the board of directors, and at our fall conference they kind of give a stamp of approval after debating and discussing what we are for. We're not for 50 or 100 different things. We have a pretty simple list of items. Local government aid is always the kind of the highest priority, but you can kind of see what our goal was, where the governor was, where the Senate was, where the House was, and what the outcome was after it went through the sausage making process. You can see kind of what the end product was. Local government aid, workforce housing, clean water, BDPI, broadband. You flip it over, transportation, we had two main priorities: corridors of commerce, which helps main highways like Highway 14 and Highway 371, Highway 23, corridors of commerce, and then city street aid. For those cities that are under 5,000, they get no money for their city street aid. So Owatonna is not in that situation, but as you know, the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities is large cities and small cities, and our larger cities are happy to help with that initiative as well. So those items were in part in the bonding bill, and I think there was a press conference down in Owatonna or near Owatonna after session that the speaker had and others to talk about the money that was in the bonding bill for Highway 14. So that's the kind of the cheat sheet for you to find out how everything came out. There's a couple other handouts that I included inside the packet for you to look at your leisure, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the council?
Covered it all.
Looks like it's very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Be
you.
in touch.
Now we move on to the next item, which is the financial report, and I will ask Councilmember Schultz to read the report.
It's rather lengthy tonight. Thanks, Rhonda. Total expenditures presented for approval tonight are as follows. Checks over $20,000 are $42,999 to D&M Construction for the Gateway 2 alley expansion, $115,294 to the Southeast Service Cooperative, that is the August health insurance premiums, $48,368 to Ford Metro for the Arts Center Improvement Project, $77,412 to Henry G. Miggs for road oil, $46,231 to Hazelton Construction for the Regional Storm Pond, $40,432 to Hydro Clean for the Sewer Slip Lining Project, $30,557 to JJD Companies for water main replacement, $20,341 to Mansfield Oil Company for fuel purchases, $24,886 to the Owatonna Area Chamber of Commerce, which is the 95% lodging tax, $46,600 to Socorro Asphalt Maintenance and Paving for 2016 crack sealing, $604,155 to Wenzel Construction, at which $524,004 is for the Southeast Stormwater Project Phase 2, and $80,151 is for the 2016 Concrete Street Project. $95,728 for the purchase of 128 East Pearl Street, $81,329 for the purchase of 22 parcels in the Kruger Edition, other expenditures of $383,111 for a subtotal of $1,657,448. Add to that the HRA Section 8 payments of $70,849. We have total expenditures presented for approval tonight of $1,728,297.34.
Thank you, Greg. You heard the report. We have a motion to approve by Kevin Rainey. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff Okerberg. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved. We now move down to the consent agenda items, which are license and permit requests, board and commission reports, department reports, contracts and agreements, etc., grouped into one motion. And what is the council's wishes on this?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Brent Svenby to approve. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Nate Dotson. Any further discussion on any of these? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? These have been approved. We now move down to action items 3.1.1, event permit, Eagles parking lot dance with the request for noise exception and a short-term liquor permit. And that we go to Chris.
Thank you, Les. The Eagles Club is planning to have a party in the parking lot with music on Friday, September 23rd. To hold this event, they've requested a temporary extension of their liquor license and an exception to our noise ordinance, which only allows you to play amplified music until 10 p.m. As you may recall, the Eagles has held similar events in the past. Their last outdoor music event was held during September of 2014. During that event, we did have several complaints from the neighbors about the volume of music. As a result, Chief Hiller and I met with the manager of the Eagles Club this last week, and we discussed this event in detail and concerns about a current agreement. She is in attendance tonight and can answer any questions. An agreement has also been reached between the Eagles and our police department that clearly outlines what's going to happen in this event and how issues relating to the volume of music would be addressed. We also, as required under the ordinance, mailed notice to the 58 neighbors asking for their comments. We have received a few negative comments. Let's see, to date, I've gotten, one positive or actually 3 positive and a couple of negative responses. Let's see. We've received the $50 fee for a temporary liquor permit, $150 fee for the exception, and in light of the liquor permit signed by the applicant, staff would recommend approval. As I said, Eagles is here in case you want to answer or ask any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Anyone on the council wish to ask a question?
Could I address the chief for a second?
Yes.
Chief, in regards to this, I saw there was some meetings with the Eagles, and we had a problem this summer on Bridge Street where the noise was very loud and the officers were there, and the officers told the consumers or our citizens that they couldn't enforce it because the city council stated that this was allowable to have the loud music. Now, I know that you've probably had a discussion with your officers and stating that if there is a problem, that this will be addressed and we won't have the continuation of the loud music, correct?
I'll speak in regards to the Eagles in 2014.
I have you come up to the microphone, Chief.
I will speak in regards to the Eagles in 2014. We had 3 separate calls regarding the noise. We do have in the liquor license agreement that the City Council has been so gracious to include in their decision making. However, under amplified music, it states the terms regarding to when they can have amplified music, but it's difficult for the officers under the last section of breach of agreement to shut down the organization without being able somehow to quantify what is acceptable and not acceptable. Under our local ordinance 95.05, our noise ordinance, if it injures a noise, it endangers the safety and peace and harmony of our community members, the officers can in turn shut that down. However, there is a little bit of a conflict when the council says you can have the special event and you can have amplified music. So what I would ask is that the council somehow put some form of stipulation on there as far as what is acceptable for them as far as the noise ordinance goes. They have to be in compliance with 95.05 while they're authorized to have amplified music, but then what is that? The officer goes there and they're reasonable. So one of the complaints was right across the street, the guy couldn't hear his television. Well, if the Eagles are having a public event and they have a band in their parking lot, that might be something that that individual, that community member has to tolerate. Although another one was about 1.4 miles away, was complaining of excessive noise. So to us, that would probably be something where we would go down and request them to turn the music down a little bit because they can hear it, across town. In the case in 2014, we were met with, well, we got a permit, we're not going to turn it down. I will give credit to the officers, even though they went back 3 times allowing us to address this at this time, instead of going over pulling the plug, writing a citation, or worst case scenario, dragging people to jail over this event. So my concern would be, how are we going to be able to put some teeth into it and some firm direction in the officers as far as when they can shut it down and or not.
Okay. The question I would have is that there is a way to quantify that, is there not? Such as the decibel sound level?
Do you have distance and from what angle?
And Ms. Bussey and I have been into the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency and quantifying dBAs and what they call is, acceptable noise limits from a low frequency to a high frequency. And depending on the noise, it can be a 50% of the time or it can be 10% of the time. And what that means is out of an hour time, 10%, it can be above that, and the other 90%, you can see where it gets extremely complicated. And thing is, we don't have the equipment. We'd have to get it on loan from the MPCA to even monitor such of activity. So it becomes very difficult for us. I'm looking for kind of a common sense approach. If it disturbs the community members, whatever level you folks decide, then we'd have to have some teeth in the agreement.
I guess, one of the things you stated is that the last time it happened, after the 3rd time of being told to turn it down and they refused to, I think that would be sufficient enough to, going over there and asking them to turn it down and they do it is one thing. If you go over the 2nd time and ask them again, the 3rd time, you should be, you've been told, now it's off.
But I want to be, in all fairness, we got to balance the interest of all parties involved. So if the Eagles are trying to have an event and the neighbor complains 3 times, I don't know that would be fair for us to go shut them down, or having a disgruntled citizen, maybe they wrote in or didn't write in. I'd like more of an objective standard that we can somehow apply to the situation.
Okay. Nate?
Is the Eagles open to working with us?
Yes, sir.
With regard to the sound level?
Yes, sir.
I guess I'm willing to even make it contingent upon the discretion of the officers on duty that night, where if they get a high volume of calls, or if dispatch gets a high volume of calls, and I think we have enough people that have the ability to determine whether or not it really is unreasonable, I have no problem with them saying, okay, let's turn it down a little bit. We're getting a lot of calls. I think you'll be open to dealing, okay, I understand, we'll deal with it. If that is unsuccessful, then I'm fine with the officers being able to say, we've gotten 25 calls, we're sorry, we gotta close it down.
And we do give approval based on the ability to let them have the opportunity to do things. If we said no to everything, guaranteed there would be no dance out there. But we have to give them that opportunity. With that being said, if there's a discretion by that officer to say it is too loud, maybe it's a consensus of a couple officers. But at that point in time, it should be, let's please turn it down. If they refuse to do it, then it's off. Does that give you an idea?
I'm tracking you, sir.
Okay. Yes, Brent.
Question for maybe for the manager from the Eagles. Where's the stage in relation to on your parking lot?
Yes, please, come up to the microphone.
Does it have a location of the stage?
Make more than one copy here?
We do have maps on our screen.
Yeah, but it doesn't show where the stage is. I mean, what direction is the stage facing? Is
Stage
it?
is going to be on the south end of the east parking lot facing north.
I mean, I think you'd probably get less complaints if the stage was on the,
North end facing south?
well, no, on the east end facing west, because you're facing more of a commercial area with less residential
Well,
to the west of that site.
you also have to realize that if you point it toward the building, it's going to bounce back. If you do it on the north end, then it'll be pointing south.
Yeah, but, yeah. I mean,
Question?
Yes, great.
I think this event has been held in the past, and it was on the west side of the building.
Correct.
And
That's
we
what I
didn't have any. We
understand.
didn't have any complaints then because you're facing the commercial district, not the residential section. So I don't know if that's an option or not. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out.
Certainly, and from what I understand is that the parking lot on the east side of the building is our private property. The parking lot on the west side is city property,
Right.
just from what I understand.
Yeah.
So
But
you'd
that-
have to
But
get,
that's workable.
you'd have to get permission from the city to use that parking lot.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I'm probably I was one of the calls to the police department in 2014
Yep.
because I had lots of calls from residents down there.
Certainly.
And I was disappointed, not you, but previous staff down there. Their attitude towards the whole thing and towards the police was bad. And I was very, very disappointed by the way the whole thing went. And I've had a number of calls since this came out from residents down there telling me how they felt about it.
Certainly.
And quite blunt words. And they knew what the attitude was like before too. So we're fighting that battle a little bit.
And I don't understand exactly what happened because I wasn't there, and I want to apologize for that. But I did meet with Captain Rithmeyer, and I did sign an agreement. I don't know if anyone has a copy of this agreement? No.
Probably not.
And it's just stating that I will be responsible, and preventatively, I'm going to talk to the band before they get there and say, this is a low-tone event. This isn't going to be a rock party or, a rock star event. It's just going to be just kind of a special, small venue for our mortgage burning.
So are you open to having it on the west side of the building?
I would have to get with the trustees, actually, because I'm just the bar supervisor, but I could I'm meeting with them tomorrow night.
And are we open to that?
Because I mean, we've
Utilize that
closed
lot.
streets down for a dance, so to close down a parking lot would not be out of the realm. And I agree, sound-wise, shooting it that way would make much more sense. You're still going to offend people, you're going to
Correct, and I
offend
don't
fewer
want to
people.
offend anybody here, no.
I think it's worth exploring because I think that was always successful when it was on the west side.
Okay.
Was it on the west side 2 years ago?
No, it was on the east side.
It was on the east side.
Yeah.
And I live on the edge of town, and I heard it at
and
that point.
I'm not doubting
I'm far from downtown, and I heard it at my place.
And we'd probably want a certificate of insurance because you're having it on our property, just naming us additional
The trustees
insured.
decide to have it on the west.
On the west side.
Okay, so we could not have it on the east then, is that what I?
Well, that's what
Well,
We're just talking, we're talking about options, yeah.
It is kind of called brainstorming a little bit, but
The only problem with the west side is such a narrow lot. It's like half the size of the
that's
land on the
part of the
east
problem,
side of the
yes.
building. Chris, did we get any complaints when Reggie's had their music downtown?
Yes.
The month we got complaints, notice complaints?
I didn't receive any, but I think council probably
I
did.
didn't receive any, but.
Yeah.
I got some phone calls.
I got 3 of them on that one.
I think we give it a shot on the east side. I think you're being very conscientious here, and the police department's being diligent. You've got written communication. Your attitude here is favorable for me to endorse the east side.
So you want to make that a motion?
I'll make a motion that the concert be on the east side of the Eagles and go till 11 p.m.
Okay, we have a motion by Dave Burbank to approve it as requested.
Yes. I mean, if it's going to be a low-key event, I don't know why there's an issue of putting that stage on the east edge of the property facing the building. If it's going to be a low-key event. I mean, if it's a low-key event, that sound should not bounce off the building to the west.
Well, the measurements,
You're estimating what, 150
It showed 150 to 200 people.
the measurements, from, it would be the east side of the parking lot to the building, it's about 114 feet. And I've never been in the music department, so I don't know.
And the stage is probably 20 feet wide, probably.
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And that's going to be enclosed. You know, if it is bad weather, then we will be taking it inside the building.
So we do have a motion to approve as requested on the east side until 11 p.m.
And I will second the motion, but I do have a question as to whether or not we want to make that, put a contingency on there that the supervising officer on duty could meet with any responding officers and determine whether or not the sound level is reasonable.
You accept that as a...
make any change to it, or you just want to approve it as is?
I think it's a common sense deal, and the police officers can use their own discretion and judgment. I mean,
So that's part of the motion and part of the second.
At the discretion of the supervising officer.
Okay.
And I will comply.
Any further discussion on this? Kevin?
Yeah, and I'll just, you weren't there the last time this happened, but obviously you're under the radar this time, and or on radar this time, and so my expectation that this will go off with no issues. I certainly don't want to see reports the next week in regards to comments directed at our city staff. I just expect that it'll go much better this time than it did last time.
Okay. Greg?
I'm a little torn on the thing just because it's in my ward, and I want the Eagles to do well. Trust me, I want you to have a good time and everything go well. I don't want to get calls from residents at 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night, and they're mad. And I got calls this past week, and they're not happy. So, if I had my preference, I'd have you quit at 10 o'clock, and then that would help. But I'm a little torn. At this point in time, just to represent my representative or my constituents, I would have to vote no. I'd like to see you stop at 10 o'clock or consider the west side of the building.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else have questions? Okay, we do have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we have 6 ayes, 1 nay. It has been approved to use it on the east side. And again, you may want to look at which would be the best location of the band shell.
Okay.
So it does create the least amount of
back noise or...
noise, yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to ordinance 3.2.1, second reading of proposed ordinance 816 to opt out of temporary health care. And this will go to Troy.
Yeah, this is the second reading at the last council meeting. You recommended approval of the opt-out ordinance. The state legislature had adopted a bill that made temporary health care dwellings, which are described kind of anything under 300 square feet on the property to care for a relative as a permitted use within the residential zoning district unless the city chooses to opt out. And many cities are choosing to opt out and electing to, if the need arises for such a use, that they would structure their own ordinance for that. And so this is, it did go to Planning Commission and they recommended opting out. Again, this is the second reading and staff would recommend approval of opting out.
Thank you, Troy. Any questions from the council?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Kevin Rainey to approve. Do you have a second?
Second.
And let's see, I'm going to go with Greg on this one. Second by Greg Schultz.
So this is actually,
Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, we'll ask for roll call. This being an ordinance.
Councilmember Schultz,
Aye.
Burbank,
Aye.
Rainey,
Aye.
Svenby,
Aye.
Dotson,
Aye.
Okerberg,
Aye.
Abraham.
Aye.
We have all 7 ayes.
All, this has been approved, and this is a second reading, so it is now enacted.
Correct.
Moving down to the first reading of proposed ordinance 9-16, the tap room and brew pub, and we're back to Troy.
So this was actually initiated by the city council at one of our study sessions, is to prepare the ordinance so that if we ever have a brew pub or tap room that wanted to locate in Owatonna, that our ordinance would be in line to accept that. And so we have, with the help of Mark Wolbrand, in drafting the definitions of brewer, brewery, brew pub, and brewer tap room. A lot was taken from the state statutes. We have those definitions included in the zoning ordinance, and then also allowing breweries, brew pubs, and brewer tap rooms to be conditional use require conditional use permits in the B2 and B3 districts and be permitted in the I1 and I2 zoning districts. We did have a public hearing at the Planning Commission. There was some discussion with the planning commissioners about some of the definitions, but they did recommend approval to forward it on to the city council. So staff would recommend approval of this zoning ordinance change.
Thank you. Questions from the council?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Brent Svenby to approve. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Nate Dotson. Any further discussion on this?
I think this is a great idea. We're being proactive towards it, and there's a lot of interest in this, and I've talked to other brew pub owners, and they check out city ordinances to see if they can even come to a community, and if you don't have an ordinance for that, they just overlook you out of hand, and now we're prepared that somebody can come here.
And we welcome them to join us.
And that was, my question was going to be with regard to model legislation or ordinances. Where did we get this?
This is, let me put it this way. We actually have 2 ordinances in front of you. The first one that Troy just covered is the amendment to the zoning ordinance to find a home for these facilities. And you've just, did you vote on that one now? Okay, why don't you vote on that, and then we can carry on.
Okay, it's all under one action item, so.
Right, I know that it really should be, this one that you're doing right now should be 3.2.2, which it is, and then the next ordinance, which is the amendments to the liquor license ordinance, would be 3.2.3.
Okay, so. That's not what we're doing. Okay. We do have 2. Okay, the first one that we'll be looking at, we don't have a motion yet, do we?
Yeah, we have a motion from,
Brent and Nate.
Rainey and a second, no, from
No, I made the motion.
Brent and a
Brent
second
and
from
Nate.
Nate, yep.
Okay, and that would be ordinance amending ordinance 157.
For the zoning, correct.
That's correct.
Okay, so we do have a motion on this amendment to ordinance 157, and any discussion from the council, any further discussion? Kevin?
Yeah, I'll just, kind of what Greg said, thank staff for working extremely hard on this. I think there are a lot of, or not a lot, but there will be people that probably haven't looked at it simply because we didn't have this in place, and I expect that we could see some action on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? This being an amendment and an ordinance change, ask for roll call.
Councilmember Schultz.
Aye.
Burbank.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Svenby.
Aye.
Dotson.
Aye.
Okerberg.
Aye.
Abraham.
Aye.
With all 7 ayes on this.
This has been approved for the first reading, and now the other one would be 3.2.2B, or 3.
Right, I think we would call it 3.23.
Okay.
And that's an ordinance that amends the city liquor license statute or city liquor license ordinance to provide for brew pubs and to provide for brew pubs on sale and off sale, and brewer tap room licenses and brewer temporary on sale licenses. The interest in microbreweries and craft beers spawned the new legislation in 2015, where the Minnesota State Legislature adopted a number of amendments to the State Liquor License Code, Chapter 340A, giving authority to cities to amend their ordinances to provide for brew pub on sale and off sale licenses, which I guess you could sort of regard as what we would commonly call an on sale bar that will have its own microbrewery on site for the sale of beer on sale, just as if you go downtown and buy a beer at a bar. It would also allow the brew pub on sale licensee to have an off sale license as well, where they could sell off sale from their microbrewery at their brew pub, which is a little bit of a hybrid that we don't have right now. It also provides for brewer tap room licenses, so if someone were to reopen Ganser's Brewery on Oak Street and open a brewery there, they could get a tap room license there if they chose to apply for one. The hours of sale are the same as for an on sale and off sale, so that if a brew pub chose to also have an on sale license, an off sale license for the sale of beer, they would have to comply with the off sale hours. One other wrinkle here is that the city would have to indicate whether or not that licensee could sell off sale on Sunday, which we don't allow now. But I think we would handle that on an application by application basis. As for the license fees, the license fee we've determined for now would be the same license fees as are charged for on sale licenses or off sale licenses.
Okay.
And,
thank you.
So
this would be ordinance 113?
This would be proposed ordinance 10-16, and it would be agenda item 3.2.3.
3.2.3. Okay. With that being clarified, Nate?
So with the state legislature making a change with regard to off-sale liquor on Sundays, that only applies in these scenarios, correct? Because they did not remove the Sunday liquor sales entirely. They only allow for it here.
And it's subject to the city's authorization. Okay. In other words, it's not automatic. The council would have to authorize the sale from a brew pub off sale on Sunday.
In an effort to be more accommodating, I would like that to apply right now. Because you might find other organizations that say, if we can sell liquor on Sunday, we might be interested in doing something like this, rather than them having to come to us and ask for permission. I would rather we'd be open to it all the time.
Well, I don't think...
Can we do that? Is that the city's discretion? Can we write it, or can we make it?
Let me look into that.
That way?
Let me look into that.
I guess what I'd suggest, Nate, is that, we request Mark to look at that and bring that back to us.
Okay.
But with this, it may confuse a little bit right now. I would really recommend that we ask Mark.
I would just like to find out, because if we can make it more appealing, rather than say you have to come to us and get permission, I would rather that if you're going to do this.
I think it would be a matter of them checking a box.
Okay.
So I think it would be a matter of them checking a box saying that they want to apply for it.
Okay.
And then the council right now is the way this is drafted is you could authorize it. Just as you authorize on sale Sunday for a restaurant.
Okay.
I just want to make it as easy as possible.
Okay.
So
as attractive as we can make it.
Basically, we're talking about them having the ability to have growler sales on Sunday, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? We have a motion or action item 3.2.3 to approve this ordinance. What is the council's wishes?
Motion to approve.
We have a
Second.
motion by Greg Schultz to approve. We have a second by Kevin Rainey. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Again, this being ordinance, first reading, that's for roll call.
Councilmember Schultz.
Aye.
Burbank.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Svenby.
Aye.
Dodson.
Aye.
Okaberg.
Aye.
And Abraham.
Aye.
All 7 ayes.
This has been approved to proceed to the second reading at this point. Now we move on to resolutions 3.3.1, resolution 73-16, proposed 2017 levy, and we go to Rhonda.
Thank you. Annually, the city is required to adopt a proposed budget for the following year and to certify its proposed levy to the county auditor in September of each year. Additionally, the council must set the date for a formal public hearing on the budget. An overview of the 2017 proposed budget was presented to the council on August 15th. This proposed budget is consistent with the city's strategic plan. The 2017 proposed levy includes an increase of 6%. The total proposed levy for 2017 for the city would be $11,363,304. This includes a levy for the city, the EDA, and the HRA. Both the EDA and HRA levies have proposed increases of $10,000 and $5,000 respectively from the previous year. The council will be presented more detailed presentations on the budget by the department heads in the months of September and October. The final levy amount and the budget will be presented on December 6th at 6 p.m. Council can approve a final levy amount that is lower but not greater than the proposed levy amounts. You'll have 3 resolutions before you tonight. One is to set the 2017 proposed levy for the city. One is to set the 2017 proposed levy for the HRA. And the final one is to adopt the proposed budget.
Thank you, Rhonda. Any questions from the council? Going with the proposed 2017 levy 73-16, what is the council's wishes?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Dave Burbank to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff Okaberg. Any further discussion there? Kevin?
While I appreciate all the work that's been done to work on the budget, I know that the staff department heads have been asked to really look at their budget and make cuts. I would still like to see it come in at 5, if at all possible. That's what I'm hearing on the street, so thank you.
Okay. As Rhonda said, this is the maximum we can always
Correct.
go down. So,
And I would just encourage that.
okay, thank you. Seeing that, hey.
And I am going to, join Kevin on that. I know some of the levies, individual levies stayed the same for a very long time, and we have increased some of those. But I'm also going to be pushing for a little bit of a reduction in the increase. Ideally, I want that to track pretty closely with tax capacity growth, which I know we've got some increases this year that we knew were coming. But I would like us to pare this back a little bit if possible. I know we can always come in under. I know that's the case. It's a little bit, we're a little more motivated if we set that ceiling a little lower from the get-go rather than trying to pare it back right at the end. So.
Yeah, thank you, Nate. Any other comments? We have a motion and a second. We do have that, don't we?
Yes, we do.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
1 nay, 6 ayes on this. Moving down to 74-16, proposed HRA 2017 levy. What is the council's wishes?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Kevin Rainey to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Greg Schultz. Any further discussion on this?
I will just reiterate that I'm gonna vote against the increase because I'm expecting us to cut in a few places. And while I appreciate the work that the HRA does, I don't think it'd be fair to ask other departments to take a little bit of a cut and not the HRA.
Understood. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Running against.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Again, 1 nay, and 6 ayes. Moving down to Resolution 75-16, proposed 2017 budget. What is the council's wishes?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Kevin Rainey to approve. Do we have a second?
Jeff.
Jeff, okay, I'm sorry. Motion by Jeff to approve. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave Burbank. Again, any further discussion on this one? Same reason, right, Nate?
Yep.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Again, 1 nay, 6 ayes. Moving down to 3.3.4, Resolution 76-16, decertified TIF district for 3.2 Cybex. And we go to Rhonda with that.
Thank you. This resolution will decertify the TIF district that was established for Cybex. This TIF district was formed as an economic development district in 2006. The developer constructed a 340,000 square foot production and warehouse facility and received tax increment assistance on a pay-as-you-go basis. The final increments will be received in December of this year, and all the plan objectives have been met, and we are required by state statute to decertify the TIF district. So staff would recommend approval of this resolution.
Thank you, Rhonda. Any questions from the council?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Greg Schultz to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Nate Dodson. Any further discussion there? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved. Thank you. Moving down to 3.3.5, Resolution 77-16, authorizing acceptance of DNR grant, trail groomer, Kaplan's Woods Mountain Bike Trail. And this we go to Corky and BJ.
Good evening. Mary Jo's along with me, who did all the writing of the grants. We'll start with this first one. We were approached by the trail user groups in this community that are maintaining the mountain biking trails in Kaplan's Woods manually during the winter months, and asked if we'd write a grant. And so Mary Jo has met with them, and happy to inform you that the grant was accepted. I think you have all the paperwork that was there. Mary Jo, have anything to add?
The work will still continue to be done by the trail user group. We will maintain the groomer, and we are required annually to send a report back to the DNR stating that we still have it in working order, and we need to let them know if it ever needs to be sold or replaced.
Thank you, but it is not being used, or the work is not being done by city staff.
That's correct.
They will
being done by the trail users, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the maintenance of the machine itself will be done by our city staff.
Okay, very good. Nate?
And how are we insured against liability?
We'll do it through our volunteer waiver forms that we have people sign that do work in the parks.
Okay.
Any other questions? Kevin?
Just comment, thank you for writing the grant. I know that this is a group that is extremely dedicated. They continue to seek more trails throughout the park, which anytime that we can get more people using the park, I think that's a wonderful thing. I would make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Kevin Rainey to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Nate Dodson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much for doing this, and great job. Moving down to 3.3.6, Resolution 7816, authorizing acceptance of DNR grant for completion of North Straight River Trails. And back to Corky.
Again, Mary Jo did a lot of work on this, writing the grant. Kyle Scove and his department has worked extensively with this as well, doing a lot of the engineering work. And we're also involved in the initial TAP grant with Kyle and his staff and our staff, and Mary Jo doing a lot of the writing part of it. You recall we received the $374,680 TAP grant, I believe 3 years ago, was it now? And with that came a $90,000 matching grant which you are aware of, and we've had that in the CIP budget for a number of years, and we've been applying for grants through the Legacy primarily. I don't know if we applied for the Trails Connection before.
The Trails Connection and the Outdoor Recreation Grant as well.
So 3 different grants we've been applying for, and with good news is that they came through with that, the $90,000 match. We also threw in approximately $49,029 for contingency, and maybe some miscellaneous benches or things when it's done. The estimates were there. When the bids come in, we'll find out where we're at with that, and so that there was no contingency on that initial part of it. It was $90,000, and so we had $100,000 in the CIP for those years, and as you see, the granting was very competitive, 28 applications, and so it's good news. And with good bidding, we'll next spring we'll have a complete project with lights and asphalt going 2.1 miles from North Street to 26th Street. And Mary Jo, would you like to add anything?
Just blood, sweat, and tears. Those have already been done, and I really want to thank Kyle. I've bent his ear several times on a few different things, getting some numbers straight, and it's been quite a battle, but it was pretty neat when there were 3.35 million requested from the DNR, and they only had $550,000 to allocate, and we got our entire request for $139,000.
Fantastic.
That's exciting.
Fantastic. Good job, everyone. Thank you. Brent?
Okay, so you planning on going for bids this winter, then construction next spring, summer sometime?
Refer that to Kyle.
We're working on the plans right now. We just finished the project memorandum. It's part of the federal process. The state grant will have some other requirements, but the topographic survey is done and they're working on the plans. So hope to be out for bids in February or March with a completion by the end of August.
Thank you. Kevin?
Corky, so this project, will it be pretty much all bid out, no in-kind?
That is the plan going in, that it would be, if bids come in favorably, a turnkey from start to finish. The things that we're considering bidding out separately, we're working with OPU, would be the lighting part of it. If we get the conduit in and get the poles set, we're hoping now with this contingency we have in there in favorable bidding, we won't have to do any in-kind on installing this trail.
Okay, thank you.
It would just be the minor pieces of it. The TAP grant requires it to be bid out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Dave?
Any plans to have water at some time?
Not in this initial plan. I know it's one of the things that make you more regionally significant if you have water fountains and things like that, but the way the trail is set up and where it goes, it's not real conducive to adding those amenities at this time.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Kevin Rainey to approve. Do you have a second? Second by Brent Svenby. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved. Thank you again for your work on this. Moving on down to 3.3.7, Resolution 79-16, declare costs 2016 street utility projects, and this we go to Kyle.
Good evening. This resolution is declaring the costs for our 2016 street and utility project that affected Olympic Hills Place Northeast, 30th Place, 22nd Street Southeast, and Cedardale Drive Southeast. The total contract amount after all of the costs were calculated came in at $825,422, and an estimated cost of $260,787 of that, or about 25%, would be assessed. And we recommend approval of the costs and setting the costs.
Thank you, Kyle. Any questions from the council?
Motion to approve.
Greg? Nate? The motion by Nate to approve. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Dave Burbank. Any further discussion here? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved. Moving down to 3.3.8, Resolution 80-16, set date for public hearing to consider proposed assessment, 2016 street and utility project. And we're back to Kyle.
This would, for those same streets, be setting the assessment hearing for October 4th to consider the assessments. And I'm happy to report that the costs are looking like they are coming in less than we originally estimated last spring. So that's good news.
Thank you, Kyle. Any questions from the council? What is the council's wishes?
Motion approved.
A motion by Kevin Rainey to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Brent Svenby. Any further discussion here? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved for October 4th. Is that correct? Public hearing date?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And moving down to 3.3.9, Resolution 81-16, to declare costs for 2016 weed assessment, and we'll go to Chris.
Thank you, Les. The purpose of our resolution is to declare the cost to be assessed and order a public hearing for October 4th for these proposed assessments. Our fire department enforces city codes on mowing of weeds and grasses and other services by using a mowing service to bring the non-compliant properties into compliance. Total assessment amount is $3,132 for the cost of weed and nuisance enforcement. We recommend approval of the resolution and setting the public hearing for October 4th.
Thank you, Chris. Questions from the council?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Greg Schultz to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Nate Dodson. Any further discussion there? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved. Moving down to 3.3.10, Resolution 82-16, set date for public hearing to consider proposed assessments for 2016 weed assessment, and we're back to Chris.
Oh, that's just setting the date of hearing.
Okay, that's setting the date.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Greg Schultz to approve, second by Kevin Rainey. Any further discussion there? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved also. Moving down to 3.3.11, Resolution 83-16 to authorize acceptance of state grant airport runway project. And we're with Troy on this one.
This project is repairing some cracks in the runway with some crack seal repair and seal coating. The project was contingent on getting FAA and state grant approval. At the last council meeting, we did receive and the council approved the FAA grant agreement. Tonight we have the state grant agreement. This is grant offers for $13,535 and for funding participation for all eligible costs, including engineering, construction, and administrative costs, with the FAA grant that covers 95% of the total cost, so the city's share would not exceed $11,898. So staff would recommend approval of the resolution authorizing the acceptance of the grant agreement.
Thank you, Troy. Any questions from the council?
Motion to approve.
A motion by Greg Schultz to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Nate Dodson. Any further discussion there? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This has been approved. Moving on down to public comment, and if anyone in the audience wishes to speak on any item not on the agenda, we will give you 2 minutes to speak. Would ask you to please come to the microphone and sign in. Seeing none, we will move on to council comment, and with that, we will start with Dave Burbank.
Nothing further tonight.
Thank you. Kevin Rainey.
Just obviously school started today. Be very vigilant. Kids tend to not look when they cross the street, so be aware. Thank you.
Thank you. Brent.
This evening.
Nate.
Nothing to add.
Jeff.
Nothing to add.
Greg.
Guess I don't have anything to add.
Nothing to add either. Okay, you got anything, Tom?
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add. How about you, Chris?
Nothing for me.
Okay, well, from my standpoint, I hope everybody had a good, safe holiday, and welcome back to school, and with that, look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Kevin Rainey to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave Burbank. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
One nay. We got to keep going. Adjourn.